Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, and it's my delight to take you once again into a jeweller's workshop somewhere in Australia. And this week we're heading across to the South Island, and we're going to go to Tasmania and see the delightful Jackie Ribbons, who's in hysterics. Hi, Jackie. How are you?
Very good morning. Morning from the big island up north. Yeah.
Well, you're the important island, especially this morning. The focus is on you and your stones and crystals. Today, our little session is entitled Everything You Wanted to Know About Stones and Crystals But Were Afraid to Ask. Now,
Yes.
Jackie, before we get into it, I'd just like, for me and our viewers, to have a little bit of an insight into your journey in jewellery making. How did you first start?
Well, started professionally a long time ago, back in the 80s, in fact. So in 1987, I opened up my first shop, which was the Crystal Gallery in the Rocks in Sydney. And yes, that like a distant memory, but it was the best time. It was fantastic. We were the first specific crystal healing type shop in Australia. So we got into that side of things. Not just new agey. I mean, I'm not exactly a purple tie-dyed kind of a girl, so it wasn't particularly new agey. It was more fine specimens, large specimens. I had the luxury of flying around the world and bringing things home because there weren't wholesalers. There was two guys, but they didn't have that much then. So it was a time of excitement and travel and getting beautiful specimens and seeing the world doing it.
So were you working on the rocks back then, as in working on your product?
Yep.
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 So who taught you those skills? How did you learn those skills?
I went and I did a course, and then I had other jewellers working for me as well, and we all mucked in and learnt from each other pretty much. Because back then as well, it wasn't just a case of putting a quartz crystal in a setting like the mass market now. It was putting fine gems on top of quartz crystals and doing bridging that gap between the occult type stuff, if I can use that word, and the high street type stuff. So getting that balance between the two and being still a business person in Sydney, being able to wear something that was a little bit more crystally. And that's where my love lies. It lies in that merging of those two worlds, if you like. So not just wearing a piece of jewellery because it costs $10,000, but wearing a piece of jewellery because it means something to you. It's giving you an energy. It's giving you something for your day, whether it's just to chill you out or to remind yourself to chill out or to stop other people's negativity getting to you or whatever it might be. But that's the bridge that we gapped back then, and I think that I'm still doing that now, pretty much.
You've had quite a journey. So now that was Sydney, and now you're in Tasmania.
Yes,
that's quite a
change. It is a jump.
It's a big
Not
run-up.
just Tasmania. It is a tiny little village.
Yeah. Now, just describe where you are now, then, Jackie.
I'm in a little village called Westbury, which is on the north part of the island, about 30 minutes out of Launceston. It's a beautiful English, picturesque, gorgeous vibe village that I just fell in love with. Apart from the fact that I bought the bank, I just fell in love with the village, and I've had the big industry type career, and I've had the smaller, and I prefer having the one-on-one, that smaller interaction, that closer interaction, and doing it my way, if you like. I'm only open to the public Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The rest of the time I'm on the bench or I'm cutting slabs of stone or faceting or cabbing or whatever I want to do, pretty much, or sending out gems to other jewellers. But it's trying to get that balance, and I think I've actually hit it.
Well done.
So it's more of a destination. And if any other jeweller is trying to work out how they get out of that rat race situation of pedaling as hard as they can and still staying stationary, be a destination. I can highly recommend it. I've done both ends, and I'm telling you, this is a better balance.
Yeah. So you alluded there before that you bought a bank, and that's actually where your shop is now, inside that bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's my showroom.
Yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
great. And then, so you're a destination for tourists.
Yes, yeah, or tourists or locals. I'm
Yeah.
so, you know, I'm so humbled by the locals that have just gone, yay, let's have a look at what you do. And Tassie is a great place for makers. It supports makers. It encourages makers. So, you know, I'm just the rocks back in my day. The rocks not in Sydney right now is more of a Gucci and a Poochie. Back in my day, it was still the makers. It was artisans. That was its culture, and it's moved away from that because of its location on Sydney Harbour, right there. It's now turned into a multinational destination of, you know, you could get whatever you're getting there, you could get that in New York or you could get that in London. Whereas back in my day, it was makers. And that's what Tassie is, whether it's food or whether it's things, it's turning into an amazing place for makers.
Excellent. So thank you for that little insight there. And so if people are coming to Tasmania, I highly recommend you look up Jackie. What's the name of your shop there, Jackie?
Crystal and Gem Workshop, surprisingly.
Crystal and Gem Workshop.
Yep.
And that's in Westbury, Westbury, so half an hour out of Launceston. Yep. And that'll be a short of a good time. So you do workshops as well, don't you, Jackie?
Yeah, I do teaching on the bench and on the cabbing machine, not so much the fastening, but I do one-on-ones, and we're trying to get classes of more than that up and running, but it's just getting the machinery and getting the space. It's getting there, but it's one-on-ones at the moment, which is great. I do a few people that fly down from Sydney. So that's fantastic.
So if people have got an interest in that area and want to do a little couple of day workshop with you, they could do that. You could tee it up.
And they can stay in a beautiful B&B right in the village.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Okay, well, I'd like to welcome our audience on board this morning. Thank you, Shant, for saying hello. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be really great. And we really are looking for our audience to come forward with any questions that they've been scared to ask up until now, but about stones and crystals, and Jackie will hopefully have an answer for you. So, Jackie, do you want to get things going and lead us in the direction you'd like to take us?
Yes, I will. Look, I see a lot of people getting into jewellery and getting into gems and crystals and things, and you know, I often go, look, do you mind if I just show you how to do that? So a few of those things I'd like to share so that people can have a better idea of what and why and where things have come from, and then have a bit of respect for the time and the effort that a cutter goes into making it into a gemstone. So let's start off with the main thing, which is quartz. I think everybody knows a quartz crystal. And when I first opened the shop in Sydney, myself and my business partner would get this thing with people would come in and go, why are you selling 20 cut glass? And we sort of, oh no, we've got a long way to go. So this hasn't, apart from the base being cut so it stands up, this hasn't been cut or polished. This is how it came out of the ground. I know that because I took this one out of the ground in Arkansas.
It's such an impressive piece, isn't it?
It's a beautiful piece. It's a lovely, lovely quartz crystal, six-sided, going to a termination. Now, the point of a crystal is called the termination. Now, a lot of people think that a termination is always going to be a point. It's not. Something like this Aquamarine, that's a flat. See how flat that is?
We'll bring that up for you. Just hang on a sec. There we go.
Yeah, that's the termination right there. So that's a flat termination. So terminations are not always pointed, not always flat. They can be curved. They can be all sorts of shapes. So don't always think that something cut to a point, which is what a lot of new age sort of cutters do. I can just grab something else just to prove a point of what I'm saying. So that is a pendant of lapis that cut into a crystal shape because people like crystal shapes. So I've just cut that into a crystal shape. It looks like a double terminator. We'll go back to that in a minute, but it's not, it doesn't crystallize. Well, it does, but it's very, very rare. So this is a raw piece of a lapis from Afghanistan, not heated, not colored, not dyed, not reconstituted, which is all the things that they're doing these days. This is a natural piece, comes out of the ground. Everything I've got only comes out of the ground, doesn't come out of a laboratory. So this is lapis, the gold stuff that goes through lapis, not gold.
Can you hold that
pyrite.
closer to the camera, Jackie? It's a beautiful piece.
Yeah. Does that help?
No.
So yeah, that's lapis. So very, very, very rarely, and I've only got one of these in my collection, so that's how rare it is. It forms a crystal, and that again is how it came out of the ground. It hasn't been cut or polished, and that's called lazulite when it does create a crystal. But that is very, very rare, and it certainly doesn't look like that shape. Are you with me so far?
We are.
Very good. So a lot of things are cut and polished into a shape of a crystal, mimicking the quartz crystal. So this one is a double terminated crystal, point at either end. It's how it's formed. This hasn't been cut or polished. I've shown you this one on the other video where I'm cutting quartz. So double terminated, groove in the middle, out and out. So they can be different shapes of the termination, but that is a double terminator. That is natural. This, guess what, is not natural. This has been cut and polished. That's what we call a Vogel type, and I was lucky enough to talk and have dealings with Marcel before he died. But he was a scientist that used quartz in different ways, and he was the most amazing scientist. But that is one of his type quartz crystals, and he proved that if you cut it into a certain shape, it does certain things. But that's a whole nother lecture.
Would you like to hold that up to the phone as well?
Yeah. So that's been cut and polished.
Wow.
Now, if I could show you on the screen, but I don't think it's going to pick it up, there are what we call phantom lines inside there, and those phantom lines. So if you could see inside that, it's got little white lines. They can be white or they can be grey. They show us where the actual termination was of this crystal before it was cut. But that's another whole technical thing. So if you're wondering whether your quartz is natural and you see a phantom inside it and it's pointing to those little shadow lines inside it are pointing to the point, then you know, yep, that's its orientation. Or that is a natural point. If you were looking inside that and went, oh, somebody polished that, and you could see phantom lines underneath it, you'd know. Also, when you look on the surface of the crystal and you glint it in the light, you will see little patterns on the actual terminations, on the facets of the termination. So if you can see those, it also hasn't been polished. So if we look at this little guy, guess what? It's been polished, and it's really, really nicely clean. It's got a lot of inclusions in it, so we know that it's more likely to be a crystal and not glass. If this was totally clear and highly polished, we'd probably go, it's quartz out of a lab. Now, you've got to remember that quartz has been manufactured, silicon dioxide has been manufactured, I think, since before the 20s. I know rubies were in the 20s. So quartz radios, your quartz chip in your computer, your phone, everything else, your watch, it's all come from a quartz crystal. So they couldn't get enough quartz crystals out of the ground, so they manufactured it a long time ago. So in China now, I know they'll take the manufactured rods and then they'll cut those and make them look like crystals. So if you get a little quartz crystal pendant and it looks too good to be true, it probably is, especially if it's 1995. So you know, use your savvy to look at what you're looking at, if I can say that. So this has been cut and polished, a beautiful piece, but it's been cut and polished. And if you love that, you love that. Full stop. At the end of the day, what you love is what matters. So yeah, that's one of mine. I love it.
Is there a time when it's sacrilege to cut and polish a stone?
Oh, look, that's a whole another day of lecture. I've spent my career saving stuff from cutters, and yes, I am a cutter, but usually things are cut from either damaged crystals or things with a chip on it. So this aquamarine, back in my day, that was going to be faceted. but because it's got that chip on that side. You see that little chip on there? So in a collector's book for specimens, so there's the collectors out there and there's the facetors out there, a collector would go, oh no, it's got a tiny little chip, don't want it. This collector standing in front of you today went, I don't care. It is a beautiful, beautiful aquamarine. I'm keeping that and I'm not going to cut it. So usually it's chunks of it. Now, aquamarine, when we're not fantastic, that's a chunk of aquamarine right there. You know, I sell these little guys for $15, but you know, it can come in this formation, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But that's fine. If you want to cut a cab, cut it out of that. Not a problem. Find a clear spot in it and cut it. But when it comes to a crystal that has had more heat and more pressure in order to crystallize, it's a little bit more precious. And something like this, back in the 80s, I could buy probably, you know, half a dozen of those. Now I'll be hunting to find one. So it's getting harder. You know, the earth only makes so much, and when it comes out of that ground, we should really honour it as best as we can. That's my view on it. Anyway, as political as that might be.
I'm sure you'd have a lot of people agree with you.
Yeah. The crystal structure comes in two different forms. So as I've said again, my gravel on my driveway is quartz. Would I cut that up and make tumbled stones out of it? No. You know, these tumbled stones that take 3 weeks in a polisher, they've got tourmaline in them, those ones. But do they come from a crystal like this? Absolutely not. These come from what's called massive formations. And massive formations are nothing to do with the size. Don't take massive as big. So if I can reach over and grab a piece of rose quartz. So a piece of rose quartz like this is what we call a massive formation, even though it's a small piece. I'm going to take you for a walk. Are you all right with me going for a walk, Peter?
Let's go for a walk.
Let's go for a walk. Now, I'll see if I can turn you around like that. Let's go for a walk. So that piece of rose quartz is a bit bigger, wouldn't you say?
Wow, that's massive.
So, yes, but it doesn't matter if it's this big, or a tiny little piece. It's still known as a massive formation.
Okay.
Are you with me? Because it hasn't got a crystalline structure that we can see easily just off the bat, like we can, say, a piece of crocoite, and we look at the tiny little crystals, we can see that they're all the same shape. They haven't got a pointy termination. They've got almost a flattish termination. Famous Tassie mineral. But we can see that they're little crystals. Something like rhodonite, massive formation. Peacock ore, massive formation. So
Jackie, we're in an art gallery here.
Oh, yeah. No. You want to see art. Come on, let's do this. So, pyrite is one of my faves because it breaks all the rules. So your silicon dioxide, your quartz crystal, when it forms, it creates that crystal that we've been looking at, which is six-sided, goes to a point. We bring it out of the ground, we know that it's a quartz crystal. Pyrite is like saying if we cook a pancake in Spain, it's going to come out flat, or square, or round. Depending on what country we go to, that pancake is going to come out a different shape. It's all the same ingredients. But in Spain, it comes out like that. I haven't cut and polished that.
You're joking? I'm
not. And when I enjoy showing guys that when they just, think that everything's, everything man-made has got to be better. I'm sorry, but you try and get a straight edge like that and a polish like that. No. And that's on its matrix. The matrix is what we call the stone that it comes out of the ground with, or on, or grows in, is the matrix.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it beautiful? No, that is art.
Yeah.
This
Now,
is
Liz agrees. She says that's stunning. Thank you, Liz.
this is from the States. They call them sand dollars. Anybody that's got one of those at home, just put it into a container with some of the silica gel, because it will break down eventually. I've had a few break down, unfortunately. But that's how flat it comes. In South Australia, it's spheres. In Tassie, these ones are from Tassie. And they're spheres made up of little squares. It's just bonkers. Bonkers.
Wow.
Yep. And that's from Peru. So, things like pyrite come in different formations, but it's all the same mineral.
How heavy is that one that you just picked up?
This one?
Yeah.
It's probably, I don't know, 300 grams.
So fairly heavy? It looks
fairly
solid.
heavy, yes, it is solid. This one's quite, I'm not going to even lift that one from here. Yeah. So, you get so many different structures.
Can you just show us that one there, Jackie?
Yeah, that one.
Now, you're saying that's out of the ground?
That's out of all of these. None of these have been cold polished or touched.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Isn't it gorgeous? I mean, Flora, can I move on? I'm going off subject here, but I'm getting excited because this is my world.
Ian has said so cool, so we're all impressed. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so this one is, can you see the different crystal shapes of this guy? That's fluorite. And, look at it. It's just superb. And you go from that, and this is another piece. This is a rare piece from Illinois that I brought back 30 years. And I've got blown up photographs of this. Now, people say, why do you wear glasses, Jackie? Well, it's years and years and years of being over a microscope looking at these guys, because you get a microscope and you go over this, it's like going over a mountain range, and it's like a different universe. Hours and hours and hours I've spent. Now, if I can just put this down a bit.
Just while you're doing that, a comment from Liz. She says, I admit I was sceptical when you said pyrite was your favourite, but wow, I'm a convert, she says. So,
look, you've got to just give it the grace that it deserves. So if I turn this guy over, you can see me. I turn this guy over. You think that's just mind-blowingly beautiful, which it is.
Mm-hmm.
You got me?
Yep.
Now, look at that blue. It's just superb.
We're probably not appreciating it at its best, but we can see the blue coming up there as you shine the torch.
Yeah. I'll lift it up and do my exercise for the day. No, mate, that doesn't happen. So, you can go from the purple on one side to the blue on the other. And then just to be a little bit more bonkers, I'd have got this out if I'd have known I was going to be doing all this, but never mind. That's fluorite as well. And so is that little guy. So, there's different structures. It's not all just quartz, and you can go from one to another to another to another, and it just blows you away. It just blows you away. Sorry, we're going to go for another walk.
Now, Jackie, I reckon you should be rivaling Mona there for getting people to come. You should be a major tourist attraction for Tasmania.
Oh, look, we just need more places that can show a bit of natural art. And
you're really showing off.
I know, 19 million years old, roughly, 19 to 20. I'm not doing the birthday candles this year, okay? And this is what we're famous for in Tassie, is the serpentine and stitch type. That's I cut and polish a lot of that. It's like polishing wheat bix, but I do.
So why is you famous in Tassie? It's quite prevalent.
Because there's only half a hill in the whole world that's got this, and we've got it. And the serpentine is very common, the green, but the stitch type, it's a little bit more rare. But to get the two together, very rare.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's what Tassie's kind of famous for. And you get a little purple in it. It's just lovely. But if you're out there wanting to polish some, it is a difficult thing to polish. It's doable, I do it, but it is a heartbreaker I thought opals were a heartbreaker. My goodness. You know, it does fall away sometimes when you're on that last part of the polish as well. Doesn't like heat. You've got to be very gentle when you're polishing it.
So Liz is appreciating the tour, and Greg says that he's a jeweler and a gem guy, and he loves crystals. So you've got some
very good. Well, you've got to like the crystals to do what we do, don't you? But that's where it starts.
And Jackie has just commented that she's having a ball. She's loving the tour. Yeah.
I'll see if I can put you back on the counter and get back on subject, shall I?
Oh, yeah, we really enjoyed that. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Right, where was I before I was rudely taken away on a journey? So, when we take a piece like this and we cut it, not like this, but do you know what I mean? A nice piece of quartz. I'll put that away so it gets out of the way. You can make, you know, obviously that's a piece of glass, but to get a piece that is totally clear out of a crystal, it's got to be usually good money. That you're paying for the crystal and then cutting that gemstone out of it, and then the hours. So let money be your guide to whether your instinct is saying this can't be real. I can usually, as weird as this sounds, but call me old-fashioned, but I can usually feel the difference between the heat and a piece of glass, between the energy of a piece of glass and a crystal. And I can also, I'm sensitive enough, I suppose, thanks, Dad. Dad's sensitive too. I'm sensitive enough to be able to pick up a quartz and go manufactured, or, you know, it came out of a lab, but that didn't come out of the ground. So the more time you spend with these sort of things, the more you get that little bit of a radar going up. So rose quartz, I'll just go back to Rosie because that's what we were talking about when I went on the field trip. So rose quartz being a massive formation, as we've gone over, it does crystallize. Very rare again, but these are rose quartz crystals. And they are super rare, super rare.
Mm.
But they do make terminations and they will crystallize. But again, that won't go in a tumbler. That won't go into a faceter. They're too expensive and too rare. And luckily on some things, the more money it is, the more it stays off of a cutter's bench, and that sort of saved it in a way. So that rose quartz, you can figure out that rose quartz has got an access, even when it's a massive formation. So if I took that rose quartz up there and made it into a sphere, now let's see if I can do this without the light. So all of you that are used to star rubies and star sapphires, you familiar with those?
I'm not, but I'm sure some people out there are.
You're not? Okay. Well, let's see if I can catch this on here. Peter, can you see that on the screen?
We're just seeing like a black dot.
A dot. Okay. If I take it away, does that help?
What should we be seeing?
On top of the stone, there's a star.
Oh, okay. No, we're not getting close enough to see.
Not getting close enough.
No.
Okay. Well, star rubies and star sapphires. That's a star sapphire. That's a star ruby. I'm hoping that we might be able to get it on here if you can see. You've got to follow the line. Can you see that line that's going across there?
No.
On the outside? No. Can you see that star on the surface?
No.
You can't see that?
It's a big white blob. I might just, will we look at the other camera?
No, it's just too much brightness, isn't it?
Oh, did I see a star there?
Oh, it's too hard for you.
So you just described what we should be seeing then.
You're going to have to come inside and see it. There's a star on the surface, a 6-pointed star, and that shows that when you turn the star all the way around, the star is on the back as well. That gives you this, what we call the C-axis of that crystal. The C-axis is from one termination to the other, straight through. That's the most obvious. On a massive formation, obviously, it's not obvious, because how do you form, where do you know that C-axis is? But when we create a sphere on that, and it astrates, which is only this pocket of rose quartz that comes from Madagascar, not the Brazilian stuff, and star rubies and star sapphires, which are both the same mineral, they're both corundums, they will asterate if you cut it on that C-axis.
Mm.
So that proves that rose quartz has got an orientation, even though it can be a chunk. That's my point.
So, Jackie, just describe the history of that orb you've got in front of you. So what did
Yes.
that start as? Where did it come from?
This is a Madagascan piece, and I've got these two guys here to prove a point with, again, also price, because there's a bit of clear quartz and amethyst is also being manufactured now. So a sphere that big would come out of a crystal probably about half the size of this. Okay. So you need to think, when you pick up a sphere and you see the price of it, think of what it's been cut from. A bloody great piece. So this guy was cut out of a big chunk of rose quartz into a square. The edges of that square are taken off. The edges of those edges are taken off until you get a rough kind of orby shape. And then that's put into a machine that looks a little bit like 3 toilet plungers that go like that.
Mm-hmm.
And grit is dripped on it for 3 weeks. And 3 weeks later, 24 hours a day, you get a sphere. So there's Amazing. A lot of work, and there's a lot of material that goes into a sphere. So you're literally losing, I roughly guesstimate about 2/3 of the material is wasted to get a sphere.
And of that waste, is that all that's all waste, or can anything be used?
No, it's the same as anything. Every little scrap is used. Every little scrap, because stone is stone is stone. The thinner your saw blades, the better. So if I'm doing a big slab, my like I've got 16-inch saws. My saw blade is only 1.5 mm. My opal cutting saw blade is probably 0.5 mm thick, not even. You can go like that and weigh, it wobbles because it is so thin. The more precious the item, the more careful you are with every part of that. Because if you're starting out with something that's, this isn't, but let's say that's worth $500, you're gonna go, no, we're gonna deal with that very carefully. So everything is taken care with. Amethyst, when it's left in the ground long enough, will turn to citrine. Halfway in between is ametrine, which again you're not going to get it, are you, on the camera? But that's ametrine, which is half citrine and half amethyst.
I'll just come over to the other camera.
This has been cut and polished into this shape because obviously this isn't the right shape. It's been cut and polished into this because this would have come again from a massive formation. But you've got that half amethyst and half citrine, if you can catch that, Peter.
Can you bring the piece closer to the camera? Because you could spend ages just looking at the inside of that, couldn't you?
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
I've got a sign. Yeah, I won't tell you what my sign says, but I do appreciate rocks more than I do appreciate a lot of people. So
Jackie, just while you've got the torch there,
yes.
If you shone the torch into your orb there from behind, what do we see? We see a white orb. Yeah.
In real life, it just shines. It's pink, but on that camera, I can see it's just too. But you can see how transparent that is, or translucent. It's a beautiful piece. So amethyst, I'll go back to my story. Amethyst, when it's in the ground long enough, will turn into citrine. Citrine is worth more money than amethyst. So some bright spark realised that if you heat amethyst up and speed that process up, you can make citrine. And when you go into certain crystal shops and you see that the amethyst shapes, so clusters like that, I haven't got one to show you, but an amethyst, that crystalline structure is more your common amethyst that you will see in shops. Apart from this is hugely lovely quality. So when you see that amethyst structure and it looks like burnt caramel, it looks like this is a piece of amber, but that's going to that colour, it's just a burntish colour. That's cooked amethyst. It's not real. When amethyst is left in the ground long enough and it naturally turns into citrine, it is a golden colour. So know the difference between one and the other. If you want some natural citrine, you're going to probably pay decent money for it, and you're going to want to know that it's come out of the ground like that, not out of a cooker. The same thing goes with smoky quartz. So smoky quartz, this is slightly smoky, but it's a natural smoky. I'll just lean over here and grab a couple of little bits. So these I pulled out of the ground myself. That smoky quartz should look smoky. It shouldn't look solid in its brownness, if you like.
Yeah, the torch isn't helping there, Jackie.
No, not.
If you can bring them up close to the camera, that'd be great.
So it should have variance in its colour. It shouldn't be just a blob of dark brown or black. If it's black and came out of the ground, it's called a morion. It's not called smoky quartz. So that is natural, but it's quite rare. But a lot of the smoky quartz now is heat radiated. So it's actually slightly radioactive. Smoky quartz became smoky quartz by absorbing low-level radiation in the ground for millions of years. So to put it into a radioactive chamber and give it a burst and turn it into smoky quartz overnight, they started to do that in 1986. I know that because a very good friend of mine, Rex Dallimore, who was a major opal dealer in Sydney at the time, and a very good friend of mine, we used to do gem exchanges around the world together, walked into a room in Arkansas where they were trying to make more money out of their quartz, and he was dead in 3 years with cancer. And we can't prove it, but we kind of know that that's what created it. So I won't be around. I won't let it in the shop unless I know where that smoky quartz comes from. It doesn't come into this shop. Unless I took it out of the ground, it doesn't come into this shop. Unless I know the phosphate, doesn't come into this shop. So it's hard to feel it these days, because if they take a synthetic lab-made piece of quartz and then put it into a radioactive chamber, make the smoky quartz, it's very hard. It's very hard, especially if they put a decent price tag on it. A lot of jewellers and a lot of mum and dad rock shops don't know the difference. So it's getting harder in our environment to be selective. And if I can say to people, just use your common sense and use and ask and push the point and just keep on saying, really? I have a lot of wholesalers that ask me, what is the difference between this and this, and can you tell the difference? Because a lot of the wholesalers can't even tell the difference. So it is getting harder in our environment. It is. I feel very sorry for valuers.
Jackie, we've got a question from Yummers, and he would like to know, what's your favourite place to collect crystals from?
Probably in the back of northern New South Wales, up into Queensland, that sort of ridge. There's so much there. Natural smokies, Tinga, all around there. The Gulf, Doon. It's all very beautiful around there. Of course, I have there's more rock shops, so that helped. But it's go anywhere. Look online. Look at old maps. Do some research. There's still a lot in Australia to be fossicked, but be respectful. I've been out with a few lapidary clubs, and the golden rule is fill your holes back in. If you get permission, if you need it in your state, get a license, and be respectful. Be respectful. Nobody wants an ankle breaker hole in their paddock or in the bush for either humans or animals. So be respectful is what I can say about that.
Liz has got a question for you too, Jackie. Irradiated smoky quartz, is that
yes.
Is that visually dark or just slight tinge of grey?
If you can get it should be a tinge of brown. It should look like somebody's literally just blown a little bit of smoke into it. So if it's a block colour, it's probably been radiated. If you can see variance in that smokiness, it's probably natural. I wish I had a piece of not natural to show you, but it's more grey, I wouldn't use the word grey at all. I'd use the word brown. But it's more blocky in its colour, if I can say that. It's not so much that waft of smoke going through it is what you want to see.
Yeah, okay. I'm sure that's answered Liz's question.
Can I just go and grab a big one? Can I go and grab a big one?
Yeah, far away. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, while you're there, Jackie, can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Greg's asked, just wondering if you have malachite. He's got some, but definitely his favourite. He loves cutting it.
Oh, I love cutting it. Has he seen the stuff that we've got in Australia from Rum Jungle?
Have you seen the stuff from Rum Jungle, Greg?
And always make sure you're cutting it underwater, as I've harped on about that before.
Because of dust?
Yes, poison. Yeah. When the London Museum did the tests on the Egyptian mummies, they worked out that they all died of copper poisoning. And if you think of a picture of the Egyptian princesses and etc., King Tut with the blue and the green eyeshadow, that's ground up malachite and azurite, both copper-based minerals that they were painting on their faces.
So, Greg, just to respond to your comment, he said he prefers Congo.
Yes. Yeah, we can't cut Rum Jungle. I'll show you Rum Jungle because it's beautiful.
You reckon?
You can go to the phone.
Yep. Oh, wow.
See how different that is? It looks like velvet.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely not available anymore. It's absolutely exquisite. But that was from Rum Jungle, Northern Territory. And if I turn it over, it's just as beautiful.
So when you say it's not available anymore, the reason for that?
Yeah, it's all gone.
Wow. Greg agrees. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So this is a piece. This is a piece of malachite from China.
Yeah.
This is a piece from Congo.
Okay.
So malachite, yeah, you can get a few different formations, all botryoidal, but you can get different colours from the different locations. And then you get the malachite and azurite together, which is beautiful, which is the dark blue together with it. I've just made a lovely pendant for a customer out of that. Very hard to cut, but did it. Now, back to Smoky Quartz. You see that on the main camera? So you see the variance. Oh, you want to go to that one? Okay. You see the variance of the colour. So it's not just a one blocky colour. You can see clear ones. You can see darker bits. That's what you want to see. That's a natural smoky. Oh, very heavy.
So you'll need a lie down after this morning.
Oh, I will. It's a workout. It's an arm workout. Oh, yeah. Well, we've gone around the world, haven't we?
We have. I'll just invite our viewers, if you've got any particular questions relating to your stones and crystals, please fire away. And thanks for your participation so far. It's been great.
So two more little you won't be able to see the anhydro. This is an anhydro. Sometimes you can get a nice water bubble in something, but with our camera skills at the moment, I don't think we're going to get that. But if anybody wants to see that, I'll see if I can get it underneath the microscope and put it on my Insta, which is Jackie Ribbons. But there's probably a good centimetre worth of a bubble in there, which is a bubble of water that was trapped in the crystal. Now, have a think about this. Crystals are formed by heat and pressure. So to get a water bubble trapped in that silicon dioxide as it formed is very rare and is absolutely exquisite. So any of us that collect crystals, we want an anhydro, and this one is probably the biggest water bubble I've seen in a piece of amethyst. So that's rather lovely.
Now, Jackie, Greg's just asked, do you have a web page? And I've just posted that in the comments there for you, Greg. So it's jackieribbons.com.
Yep.
So that's JACKIE ribbons, RIBBONS.com.
Yes. And my Insta is my name as well. And if you go on the Insta, you can see me. You can see me underground and getting crocodile and all sorts of things. Just quickly before we go, I'd just like to. I was showing somebody how to do this the other day when they looked at my gemstones and said, "You get them all in rows." We go to this camera.
Here we go.
So how do we get those all in rows? Because people tend to put their gemstones into their boxes by putting them in that way and then putting the lid on. Please do not do that. We have taken a lot of time and care and effort creating all of those little facets in those gemstones. Now, interesting thing about these little boxes, which you can get from AJS, through having shops all these years, these little plastic tops take 15% of the colour out of a gemstone. So if a customer wants to see the gem that you're going to set for them, remove the lid, show them the gemstone without the lid. You put that on, you reduce it by 15%. So when you put your stones into one of these boxes, make sure your fluff is level with the top of that box. And you do get boxes that are reversible, white and black. Also, the sponge is peelable. You can take a layer of that sponge away if you need it. If you've got a big gemstone that you're putting in there, then remove a piece of the sponge so that it's got that bit of give. So take your lid, give it a little bit of a clean. Eye cleaning glass cloth is great, as in glasses. Get your gemstones and put them table down onto your plastic. That table will then support that gemstone. When you put the back onto it, that table with the gemstone, this bit is being supported, and you're putting the sponge onto that bit. So then you get your gemstones nice and neat in your box. And as I'm always screaming at people, please wipe your fingers off of the top of the box. and then you've got that box. The same goes with these guys. These guys, again, I'm getting from AJS, but that's reversible, and you can do whatever you can. I have taken sponge out of that when I've needed to. And again, do the same thing. Put your gemstones on the glass. Of course, my fingers are everything at the moment. And then put that down, and then you've got your stone in your box. But please don't do it the other way up so that you're damaging or putting pressure on those facets. It's fine with topaz or diamonds or whatever, but if you've got a nice piece of fluorite that you just cut and you go to do that upside down, you are going to chip it. So please don't do that. With your opals, it doesn't matter so much. With your cabochons, it doesn't matter so much. You can go that way. And it's easier to orientate your cabs in those boxes as well than it is a faceted stone trying to keep them level. And then put your lids on. Opals again, not so bad. But make sure you've given it enough room with that padding. That's what the padding's there for. So this nice little Aussie sapphire, again, you'll make sure that guy's in the middle of your box. And put your lid on. Hey, presto, she's there.
Excellent. Great tips. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Pleasure.
So unless we have any final questions from our viewers, we'll just see if any are coming through. Right. I just had to refresh the screen there, but okay. We'll thank you and our participation from our audience this morning in Shant, Greg, Liz, Ian, Yummers, Alison, Wayne, and others. Thank you so much for being online. Everyone really enjoyed the session and the tour through your art gallery, which I think does rival
Nature's
Mona.
art.
So, yeah, nature's art. Yeah. So anyway, just keep that in mind to visit Westbury in Tasmania when you go to visit the Apple Isle. And Jackie, I'd love to show you through. Okay, yep. Jackie, thank you so much for today's session. We look forward to seeing you and our viewers next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.